Hi guys, welcome. And who dat? I'm Joe, and today I'm going to be presenting my New Orleans Saints 2023 NFL Mock Draft 2.0. Did a mock draft earlier. It was at the end of a part 2 video about the draft. You can find it in my playlist under New Orleans Saints. And I've decided to do another 7-round mock. I'm going to have a timestamp right here showing you when the mock starts. If you guys want to hang out and listen to me talk a little while before we get to it, I've done a lot of studying of the upcoming draft. I've spent a lot of time doing simulations, looking at all of the different lists, trying to compile one that makes sense. And the first mock draft I did on Pro Football Network. Now, this was right after the combine, but some of the pro days hadn't finished yet. Once all the pro days were done, I noticed the rosters on all of these mock draft sites. All of the rosters were getting modified, and the one at Pro Football Network didn't get modified, and it was borderline obsolete to begin with. So Pro Football Focus is one that a lot of people like to use. Now, you have to subscribe to get the 7 rounds with the trades and everything else. I've done it once. But the site I like to go to, the one that I think is kind of like a mix between all of them, compiled into one nice little average one, is the NFL Mock Draft Database. A few sites have used it, and that's the one I'm using today. I think it's more accurate, and I don't have to subscribe, and I can do trades and all that stuff. So in the first mock draft I traded down 3 times. I realized when I was doing it, the Saints usually like to trade up. And since that time and all of the modifications to the depth of this draft class, I've noticed that a lot of things have changed. Kalijah Kancey, the defensive tackle, is not going to make it to pick 29. If we want him, we're going to have to move up. A lot of things are getting settled in for other positions as well. I've looked at it. I've done so many simulations. I feel like I know where you have to move to get certain positions met. And there's a flux of players. If you don't get a good one by the 2nd round, you might have to wait till the 5th round, stuff like that. I've done all of this, and I've compiled it all together, and so I think the mock I've put together this time, I'm happy with. I could be happier. So the issue I have with the Saints is they like to trade up a lot, to the point where we end up with a draft class that has 5, maybe 6 players. Well, this year we currently have 8 picks, and if we select all 8, it'll be a huge haul for the Saints as far as number of players. And we have a number of positions that need to be addressed. So I've talked about that at length in my part 1 video, but several weeks have gone by. So this is the final list of positions of need that I've come up with. And we have 8 picks, and I feel like there's 7 positions that could or should be addressed in this draft. Looking at the depth of this draft, the needs of the Saints, and the number of players that I would like to get, I think that 8 players would be pretty good. I just don't think the Saints are going to make all 8 of those picks. I think they're going to trade up probably a couple of times. We'll lose picks in the process. They're never going to consider trading back once and acquiring additional picks. So I guess I should just be happy with 8. If I just stay still and make 8 picks, I should be happy. But I'm not, okay? There's too many positions here. I want to address defensive tackle first and foremost, and an edge rusher, preferably a defensive end. When I say edge rusher, I mean a defensive end, not a linebacker that can blitz. Okay, you know, we can get into that, but my intention is I think the Saints should focus on defensive line heavily. You spend two picks, one on a defensive tackle, one on an edge rusher. I would still like to pick up a third body somewhere in there. We just don't have enough picks to do that. I have offensive line as our third biggest need, and I say offensive line because what we really need is a guard that's going to take Andres Pete's place once Pete finishes his last year and then leaves, which I think we all expect is going to happen. Well, so that's what we really need is a guard who can take Pete's place. But Pete will probably get hurt during the season. We're going to need a backup guard anyway. I'd like to get a guard better than Throckmorton. But I write offensive line because we have James Hurst as our third tackle, and he can play guard, and he's a better guard than Throckmorton. So if we address offensive line by adding a tackle, that frees up James Hurst to be our primary guard. So I say offensive lineman. We'll make it work. But one more really good offensive lineman, elevate the backup offensive lineman on this team. And at the same time, try to get a guy good enough that can start for you at left guard eventually. That's why I write offensive line. And then I think our fourth biggest need is wide receiver. It's not that we don't have enough bodies and we can accumulate a few more bodies. It's just that we have 8 on the roster now, and 6 of them are on one-year contracts. So that's a lot of negotiations. It'd be nice to get a young guy in here and lock him into a 4-year contract where we don't have to, look for too many bodies next year. Because we're not going to be able to retain all 6 of these wide receivers with 1 year left on the contract. Some of them are going to prove they're not worth keeping. Some of them, even like Michael Thomas. He finishes this year, let's say he does really good. He's 30 right now. So are we going to sign a 31-year-old Michael Thomas to a $15 million a year contract for 3 years? Is that what we're going to do after this year? So wide receiver, if you get a good one early, I can't fault you for it. I just think that the type of receiver Michael Thomas is a good complement to someone like Chris Olave. I think we need a bigger receiver. And so all of that to consider why I have wide receiver listed so high. And linebacker, I specify just linebacker, not middle or outside. We immediately need an outside help. I think Vaughn is a good Sam, but if something happens to Pete at the will, I'm not convinced Vaughn can play the will. So I think we need an outside linebacker that can play both the will and the Sam. However, Demario Davis is 34 years old. He's probably going to retire in 3 or 4 years at the most. And so if we get a middle linebacker, it wouldn't break my heart. Someone good enough to be able to take Davis's place. It'd be nice to get a guy that could play all the positions. But, those are few and far between. Now, when Davis retires, we can put Pete Werner at middle linebacker. That can happen. That it's almost expected to happen. We're still going to need an outside presence at linebacker. We're going to need an upgrade there. And that's where I'm at on those. I think those are the most important ones. And with 8 picks, you might not be able to address all of it because there's still really good depth at running back in this draft, really good depth at tight end. Those are needs. They're almost like really big wants. We don't need a tight end. We don't really need a running back. I mean, Kamara's going to miss 6 games this season, and we have a backup in Jamal Williams. So we need a complement for 6 games. Do you spend a draft pick just to cover one guy for 6 games? No, that's not typically what you want. But Kamara is going to miss 6 games. The next year, he's going to probably be making, what, 17 million, 20 million, something crazy like that. And then his contract's going to be over. He's going to be 30, going on 31. And what are we going to do? Resign Kamara to 3-4 years at $15 million dollars a year? I mean, so you can say running back is a big need if you get a guy that's going to take Kamara's place. And do you spend a high draft pick? I think the depth here is pretty good at running back. I think if you wait too long, your options or what type of back to get are going to diminish. But the depth here is so good, you almost feel like you need to get a running back in this draft because there is a want, almost a need, and there's an opportunity. Same thing with tight end. We're good at tight end. We still have Adam Troutman for 1 year. We still have Taysom Hill running around. And we re-signed Juwan Johnson. It'd be nice to get a guy like Josh Hill, a guy that can run block good and be a good receiver for you, a good number 2 tight end who's going to take Troutman's place. This is his last year. You hope a guy that, can be better than Troutman. So, but it's not a screaming need right now to get a tight end. It's just there's a great opportunity in this draft. So when you count all of that, you've got 7 positions to address. You've got 8 picks to do it. You miss on a few of them, and you're running around in free agency trying to cover these spots. So DB is a consideration. Also, quarterback is a consideration. So personally, I think as far as the draft goes, we're going to have to move up in the first round if we want a pass rushing defensive tackle in Kalijah Kancey. I'm not sold on Greasy, but if you want Kancey, I think you're going to have to move up to get him. That being said, I think in order to be completely happy with this draft, we would need at least all 8 picks. I would be happy with 10. I think 12 would be perfect. I'm talking about 4 7th-round picks, glorified rookie free agents, just so you can take a flyer on a quarterback, grab another body on the defensive line, grab another body on the offensive line, grab another receiver or a special teamer, running back, something like that. That's why I would like to have a couple of extra late round picks so we can take a chance on some of these positions and see. Because if any of them, if we spend the draft capital on it and it doesn't pan out, there's so many needs on this team. I feel like we're gonna be missing a lot. So with all that in mind, I feel like in the draft we should move up in the first round and then try to accumulate extra picks in the draft at the same time. Somehow move up in the first round, but move back at some point and accumulate extra late round picks. That's my goal. I don't think the Saints will do it, but it's the only way I'm going to be completely happy with a mock draft. I saw a mock draft the other day where the person moved up 3 times and we ended up with 5 or 6 picks. And there were so many needs that weren't met. And I've done so many simulations where I have taken 10 players and I still didn't meet a need. I think the mock draft I have, the first one presented to you on my channel, I ended up drafting 2 running backs because Tyjae Spears fell so far, and I ended up not focusing on linebacker. So stuff happens in the draft. Nothing's going to be perfect. So if you haven't skipped to that timestamp, I'm going to give you one more thing to look at, and these are my favorite players in the draft, players that are there's a chance the Saints could get. I showed a big list in one of my videos before. This is a smaller list, but here are the offensive players, and these are my favorites. These are guys that I think the Saints could get. At quarterback, Hendon Hooker's a great player. I think he would be pretty successful in our offensive system. But I don't want to spend a 3rd-round pick on him. I don't want to spend a high draft pick on a quarterback. If Hendon Hooker's there in the 4th round, fine. I feel like we're missing out on a position of need. But if you think he's a good guy, I can tolerate Hooker with a fourth round pick. Okay, that's not going to happen. He's going to be gone before then. People need quarterbacks. We have 2 Pro Bowlers on our team. We don't need a quarterback. But if we want to take a flyer in the 5th round or later, I am really partial to Clayton Tune out of Houston. I like Jake Haener out of Fresno State and that great accuracy. I like Max Duggan. He reminds me, believe it or not, of Taysom Hill. And Tanner McKee is okay, not with a 3rd round pick. A 5th round pick, yeah. Those are my favorite quarterbacks. At running back, Jahmyr Gibbs would be the perfect fit for the Saints. If you want him, you're probably going to have to get him in the 2nd round. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of drafting a quarterback or a halfback that early. Zach Charbonnet, I think, is the perfect fit for the Saints. Everyone wants Tyjae Spears, and I have him on my list at number 3. I love Dwayne McBride. A lot of people say it doesn't translate. All I see is a great football player. So I'm a fan of his. And Devin Achane. He's a good running back. He's powerful for his size. He is on the short side. But, if Achane slips into the 4th round, or you can get Spears there, yeah, that's a move to make. At wide receiver, Quentin Johnston should be gone, as well as Jackson Smith in Jigba by the time we draft in the 1st round. What I'm saying is, if we move up in the 1st round, those 2 players are worth getting. I'm going to say that. I don't want to spend a high draft pick on a wide receiver, but those 2 would be worth getting. And my other favorites in the draft, A.T. Perry's my favorite. If we can get him in the 3rd or 4th round, I think it'll be a steal. Rashee Rice is phenomenal, and Xavier Hutchinson is a great player. I love those guys. I'm also a big fan of Dontavian Wicks, even though a lot of people don't see it. All I see on the tape is a great receiver. I love Jonathan Mingo, and I think everybody likes. I can't find his name now, and I wrote it down. This isn't good. What's wrong with me? And everybody really likes. I can't believe this. Oh my God. Bryce Ford Wheaton. I couldn't remember his name for nothing. I like that guy too. I really like Cedric Tillman. I'm sorry about that awful pause just now. And there's some later round talking about undrafted 7th round guys. The Saints succeed at undrafted rookies all the time. And someone like Jadakiss Bonds or Elijah Higgins is somebody that I think the Saints might take a chance on. I think they would. I think we need to get a bunch of players as rookie free agents because we don't have enough draft picks. Let's take a look at the tight ends. Michael Mayer's my favorite, the complete guy. Dalton Kincaid, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, Luke Schoonmaker. I'll take a Dwayne Washington or a Sam Laporta, of course. I'll take a flyer on a Zach Kuntz. Those are my favorite 5. On the offensive line, looking at tackle, I've got a bunch of them here because I'm trying to cover the whole draft and my favorite players throughout. Dwan Jones is probably not going to – he's the only one I think that might make it out of the 1st round. He might be too good to pass with the 2nd round pick. I love Matthew Bergeron. I think Tyler Steen out of Alabama can play tackle, but if we move him to guard, he can do that too. That same goes for Nick Saldivini. Wanya Morris is a good player. Carter Warren, who missed last season, but he was so good before he got hurt. That's a guy people aren't going to draft early because of the injury, and he might be too good to pass up later on. Ryan Hayes out of Michigan and Warren McClendon out of Georgia. Both look like they're going to turn out to be decent pros. At guard, of course, Torrance. Love Steve Avila. Love Cody Mock. Andrew Voorhees got hurt at the scouting combine, and if you draft him, you might not have him his rookie season. But he's a really good player. Chandler Zavala rising up in the charts. Jackson Kirkland, who can play tackle. I've got him on the list of guards of one of my favorites as well. Looking at the centers, we got John Michael Schmitz, who is only going to fit in certain offensive lines. I don't know if he would in ours. Luke Whippler out of Ohio State is too small to play guard, but he's a really good center. Joe Tipman. Then you got Olusegun Oluwatimi out of Michigan. And I really like Brett Nealon out of USC. Those are the offensive players that I have on my radar. And now we're going to pull up the defensive players on my radar. Starting with defensive end, love Will Anderson. He's a little light, but he's such a good player. That's a guy I'm taking a chance on. Tyree Wilson would be right there if I had a choice. I'd have to flip a coin between those two. Wilson is definitely the size. Lucas Van Ness is a great size, perfect for the Saints. Adetomiwa Adebawore, touch short, but I like the size. I like the versatility. He's got short arms, but I think he can make it anywhere across the line. I've got Tuli Tuipulotu as a defensive end on my list. He's technically a tackle or an end. I love him because he can play both. And I love guys that can move around like that. Isaiah Foskey, good size for us. Hopefully he can fall. Keon White. Yeah, there's some charts that have him going in the second round. Some of them, he lasts till the third or fourth round. He's perfect for the Saints. Isaiah McGuire is another guy with great size. Viliami Fehoko. That guy, if you can get him in the fifth round, it's a steal. And I'm looking at him. He's the perfect defensive end for the Saints. And Zach Harrison, now he's the perfect size for the Saints. He reminds me of something like Marcus Davenport. I don't see the effort on tape. I think if you get Zach Harrison in the third round or fourth round, it's okay. But the Saints are the type of team that would trade up in the first round to go get this guy. And then he'll end up cashing his check, and we will be left with nothing. I did put him on this list, though, because he's the perfect size for what the Saints love. At defensive tackle, Kalijah Kancey's my favorite player in the draft. That's the guy I want. Mozzie Smith is my next favorite defensive tackle. I don't even have Bresee on this list. Too inconsistent. I don't like the high pad level. I'm not a fan of Bresee anymore. But if we get him in the second round, I'm not going to argue. Keanu Benton's great. I got Carl Brooks at the defensive tackle. He can play end too. I love Carl Brooks. Carl Brooks and Tuli Tuipulotu, to me, are the guys. They can play end and defensive tackle, and I would love to have those guys on the team. Carl Brooks might be my second favorite lineman from what I've seen on the tape. Moro Ojomo from Texas is perfect for this team, I think. Zach Pickens, his tape wasn't all that great this past season, but there's talent there. Siaki Ika should be going a hell of a lot higher than where I have him rated here, but I'd get him in the fourth round. Byron Young out of Alabama, I think is another guy that can play across the line. Kobe Turner is a guy that some people love, some people don't. I like it. And I really like DJ Dale out of Alabama. He might not even get drafted, but if we grab him, I'll be happy. He's another one of those guys that can play all along the line. And I want to mention some smaller school defensive tackles at this point. Broderick Martin out of Washington, out of Western Kentucky, pardon me. Jonah Tavai out of San Diego State. Jared Clark out of Coastal Carolina. Deswan Johnson out of Toledo. And Devonshep Maxwell out of Chattanooga. I'm mentioning those guys because That's some people to look for. Free agents or maybe late round draft picks. We have to focus on defensive line for this team. That's why I've got so many of those listed here as my favorites. At linebacker, we're talking Drew Sanders, Jack Campbell, and Ivan Pace Jr. for middle linebacker, and then Trenton Simpson and Dorian Williams for outside. Trenton Simpson can play anywhere. Love that. Drew Sanders is the guy whose tape blows me away. But he played safety at Alabama. Then he goes to Arkansas, plays 1 year at middle linebacker, and just looks phenomenal. He just missed a lot of tackles. And I think that gets better as he gets bigger and learns the position. He's so good now. First year ever. It's like I want to take that guy so bad, and if he misses 4 tackles, I'm going to lose it. Jack Campbell, to me, he looks like he's okay. I don't think his instincts are as great as Drew. Jack can fight off the blocks, though. Trenton Simpson has a hard time with the blocks. Ivan Pace is too short for the Saints. But God, I love Sam Mills, and I love watching the tape on Pace. And Dorian Williams out of Tulane covers people out of the backfield better than any linebacker in the draft. So, that's the thing you worry about with linebackers. Can they cover? You don't have to worry about that with Dorian Williams. At cornerback, Cam Smith, if he makes it to the second round, I wouldn't mind taking. I know we don't need a cornerback, but that's just one that seems like he's got too much ability and could fall. I really like Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami, Julius Brents out of Kansas State. I'm a little hot and cold on. Jalen Jones out of Texas A&M. Not a lot of tape to watch because nobody ever threw his way last year. Really good player. And Jartavis Martin out of Illinois. He was at the Senior Bowl, and I got my eye on him. At safety, Brian Branch, of course, should be there with our first-round pick, maybe even our second-round pick. Jamie Robinson out of Florida State probably fits us the best. Antonio Johnson, Texas A&M, really good. Anthony Johnson Jr. out of Iowa State, very good. And Sidney Brown out of Illinois. I like all these guys. If we take one of these cornerbacks or safeties in the third or fourth round, it won't break my heart. These are my favorites. So there you go. That's all of it. That's where I'm at before the draft. Those are the players that I hope the Saints get at some point. And I've already discussed how we should handle the draft. Let me show you how I handled it in this, my 2.0 mock draft for the New Orleans Saints. I'm pulling up the big screen. Here's the blue. Here's the timestamp. Let's get started with the NFL mock draft 2.0. All right, here we go. Now, they're the Saints picks. We've got 8 of them. I think we're in no man's land at pick 40 in round 2, honestly. I think we're in no man's land at 29 as well. If we want a pass rushing defensive tackle, Kancey's the guy I'm looking at. I'm going to have to move up to get him. I know I'm going to have to do that. And then at some point, I'll want to trade back. And round 2 might be that round to trade back in. It's a good spot if you want to grab an edge rusher, but I really think you can get a good one in the third round. If you take a guard with the second round pick, it might be a touch of a reach. I think there's the opportunity to move back in the second round and still get a great guard and pick up additional picks. So this is my plan going in. Okay. So I'm looking at Pittsburgh. They have pick 17. And in 5 of the last 6 simulations I've done, Pittsburgh's taken Kancey. That's the spot I'm focusing on. I'm watching the first round. I'm watching the players peeling off the board. When pick 17 comes up, I make an offer to Pittsburgh. At least I know they're not going to get Kancey if I can get that spot from them. I'm moving up to get Kancey. That's my intention. And I kind of think Pittsburgh would do it without giving up our first round pick. So I offer Pittsburgh our second round pick this year and our second round pick next year. And they are willing to give me pick 17 in the first round for those 2 second round picks. Not only are they willing to give me that, they're willing to give me their 4th round pick as well, pick 120. I decided to send them over my last pick in the 7th round, 257, and I grabbed 2 of their 7th rounders, 234 and 241. So this is the trade that Pittsburgh agreed to. We are keeping our 1st round pick at 29. And we're getting the 17th overall pick and trading away our 2nd this year and our 2nd next year. We get a 4th round pick and 2 7th round picks, and we give up our last 7th round pick, and that's the trade. Pittsburgh agrees to it, and now here the Saints sit with the 17th overall and the 29th overall. We don't have a 2nd round pick anymore, but I'm feeling pretty good with this. I'm in position to get Kancey, and I'm going to turn that card in. And then Seattle calls me and says they want the 17th pick. They've got the 20th pick. They're willing to send me a 3rd rounder to move up 3 spots and a 6th rounder. And I got to think about this because Kancey's the guy I want. This is why I moved up. But sitting on the board is also wide receiver Quentin Johnston, who I'm a huge fan of. And I would not mind drafting. If I don't get Kancey and I get Johnston instead, okay, I can survive. There's also an edge rusher in Lucas Van Ness that's there. And that wouldn't be a bad 1st rounder either. I'm looking for a chance to trade down. I just didn't think it would be with the pick I just traded up to get. But I go ahead and take Seattle on their offer because I like 3 players that are there. I really want Kancey. But I guess I could settle for Johnston or Van Ness, especially if I'm going to pick up a 3rd rounder and a 6th rounder. And I'm also going to move up in the 5th round from pick 165 to pick 151. And I'm also going to move up in the 7th round from 241 to 237. Seattle agrees to this. And as highly unlikely as it is, I take the opportunity to not only move up, but now move down. Kancey's my man, and I should pull the trigger on him. If I didn't love Johnston and Van Ness so much, I would. But I go ahead and make the trade with Seattle. As unlikely as it seems to you guys, I go ahead and pull the trigger on this. So now, these are the Saints picks. We don't have a 2nd, but we have 2 3rds, 2 4ths, a 5th, a 6th, and 3 7s. Now we've got a bunch of picks, and I'm not going to make 12 selections, so I'm definitely going to be moving up at some point. Seattle moved up to 17, and they grabbed Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver. An offensive tackle goes off the board next, and then somebody else went next, but it wasn't Kancey and it wasn't Van Ness. So with the 20th pick, my guy Kancey is still there. And I'm turning in the card at pick 20 in the 1st round of the 2023 NFL Draft. The New Orleans Saints select defensive tackle Calijah Kancey out of Pittsburgh. I'm able to move up and move back and still get the guy I want. Pretty stoked about this. I got pick 29 in the 1st round coming up. And when that pick comes, Lucas Van Ness is still there. And I'm thinking, I was considering trading back. I really want one of those guards. Torrance is off the board at this point. There are some edge rushers I really like. But I think Van Ness might be the pick here. I don't think I'm going to mess around with this. This is a no man's land unless somebody really good in a position of need falls right into your lap, which he does. And this is the pick with pick 29 in the 1st round of the 2023 NFL Draft. The New Orleans Saints select Lucas Van Ness out of Iowa. 2 first rounders, 2 defensive linemen. I'm feeling pretty good. Now, I've got all of these draft picks to work with, and I'm starting to watch guard. There's 2 guards I have in mind, Steve Avila and Cody Mock. I'm watching the draft, and as soon as one of those guys gets taken, I'm making a move back up into the second round if I have to. And sure enough, Cody Mock goes with the 45th pick. So I make a call to New England, who has the 46th pick. And they are willing to trade me their second round pick, pick 46, and a 4th rounder, 135. But I got to give them both of my 3rd rounders, and I'm going to give them a 5th rounder and a 7th rounder to get back into the second round. So I spent 2 second round picks to get a 1st rounder, and now I'm spending 2 third round picks to get a second rounder. I'm getting a 4th rounder, and I'm giving up a 5th and a 7th. That's the trade. I'm back into the second round. Now here's the revised draft board, and that's the board I use for the rest of the draft. I've got my defensive tackle. I've got my edge rusher. And with pick 46 in the second round of the 2023 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select offensive guard Steve Avila out of TCU. I am stoked about this pick. The man has played center. He's dominated at guard. He's the most athletic guard in the draft. I love Torrance, but Avila here. And I'm looking at this now. Kancey, Van Ness, Avila. I'm pretty happy. I'm not stoked that I don't have a 3rd round pick, and that's where those running backs start going. And I feel like I might have missed my opportunity to get Tyjae Spears. I might have missed my opportunity to get A.T. Perry. But I got my major needs filled, and I'm excited. I have to wait a long time, but I do have 3 fourth round picks at my disposal now, and a 5th, and a 6th, and a couple of 7s. This total haul will be 10 players, and that's a sweet spot, right where I think the Saints need to be. And I'm waiting, and before my pick in the 4th round, I watch Atlanta draft Tyjae Spears, and it breaks my heart. But those are the bumps and bruises of the draft. I've made my moves. I've secured the 3 players that I really want. And in the 4th round, with pick 115, the New Orleans Saints select wide receiver Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss. Mingo's got size. He's got decent speed. He's a great possession receiver. Somebody who's got the same kind of build as Michael Thomas, and a guy that can dominate in the slot, and I think he's good enough to play on the outside. Mingo's a good pick here at wide receiver for us. He's a body type we need, and I think he's definitely going to compete with Bryan Edwards and with Tre'Quan Smith for that 4th wide receiver spot. 5 picks later, at pick 120 in the 4th round of the 2023 NFL Draft, I go ahead and pull the trigger on running back Zach Evans, also out of Ole Miss. Evans has got a similar body type to Tyjae Spears, not unlike Alvin Kamara. He's just big enough to be able to absorb some between the tackles. He can do a lot on the outside. He's a good receiver. Not 100% completely happy with this, but Spears was gone, and I think Evans at that point in the draft had a good mix at running back that I was looking for. I pull the trigger on Zach Evans. And 15 picks later, with the 135th pick in the 4th round of the 2023 NFL Draft, the Saints select tight end Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion. You say Kuntz? I say Kuntz. Okay. Zach Kuntz looks to me on film exactly like Jimmy Graham. He's got a lot he's got to work on. He's not a complete tight end. He's got all the physical tools, but he looks like he's going to be a receiver out of the gate, and he's going to have to work on run blocking. He's going to have to work to be an all-around, more physical, tough guy at 6'7" like he is. But taking a flyer on Jimmy Graham in the third round was a great move for the Saints, and I think drafting Zach Kuntz in the fourth round is a pretty good move for us. Now, I've spent 3 fourth-round picks on 3 offensive skill positions, basically. And I'm feeling pretty good. I like it. The 5th round comes with pick 146 in the 5th round of the 2023 NFL Draft. The Saints select edge rusher Viliami Fehoko out of San Jose State. This man is built to play football for the Saints. Perfect size. And we already got an edge rusher in Lucas Van Ness. We need defensive line help. Grabbing another defensive tackle was a plan for me. It didn't quite work out that way. But the edge rusher here, too good to pass up, in my opinion, if he's there in the 5th round. If he's there, because I think someone's going to grab him in the 4th. I thought about it. But I get him in the 5th, and I'm happy. The 6th round comes. I've only got 1 pick. And with pick 198 in the 6th round, I take offensive tackle Warren McClendon out of Georgia. His partner in crime probably goes in the 1st round. Warren McClendon looks to be an above average player in this league. I think that he's got the tools to compete for that backup tackle spot. Definitely beat out Landon Young. I think he can give James Hurst a run for his money. And Hurst is a player that can play guard as well. This is a good move for us. We got an offensive lineman now in Avila who can go guard center, and we've got a tackle in McClendon, leaving Hurst optional for tackle guard. We've got 2 7th-round picks, and you can take a flyer on just about anything here. A lot of people say focus on special teams. We are focusing on special teams in free agency quite a bit. And we may have a pretty solid special teams already. So why not take a flyer on a quarterback? I got my eye on Max Duggan. I got my eye on Clayton Tune. Both those players go before my pick at 227 in the 7th round. So I decide to draft with that 227 pick in the 2023 NFL Draft in the 7th round. The Saints select quarterback Jake Haener out of Fresno State. Yeah, he's short. Yeah, he's athletic, but he doesn't show it on the field. But he's accurate as all hell. And this is a guy you might be able to keep on your practice squad for a year. I also think he's the perfect fit for the Saints offense. I wish he was a couple inches taller, but this is the guy we're grabbing. It's a 7th-round pick. If it doesn't work out, oh well. It's not like Garrett Grayson in the 3rd round or something. This is Jake Haener with a 7th-round pick. So, and with my final 7th-round pick 220 or 234 in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Saints select cornerback Starling Thomas V out of UAB. Kick returner, punt returner, one of the fastest cornerbacks in the draft. And a man that only allowed 22 catches last year. He's listed anywhere from 5'10" to 6 foot. I think it's a nice little addition. And there you go. Let's pull up the final tally, my Houdat Nation. We move up. We move back. We move up again. We end up with 10 picks. And I'm going to talk about all 10 of these players here. Starting at the bottom and going up. Starling Thomas V. I've seen him listed at 5'10". I've seen him listed at 6 foot. So we'll just say he's 5'10 and a half, 5'11. He is a punt and a kick returner and one of the fastest cornerbacks in the draft. Take a flyer on him in the 7th round. Jake Haener. In the last 2 seasons, he's thrown for 53 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. In 2020, he had a completion percentage of 64.7%. 64% completion in 2020. Okay, 64% completion is pretty good. He also was completing an average of 25 passes per game in that year. So not only was he completing 64% of his passes, almost 65% of his passes, he was completing 25 passes a game. Okay, solid guy. In 2021, he blows up with 33 touchdowns, only 9 interceptions. His completion percentage is 67.1. Everybody thinks he's going into the draft, but he goes back another year. And last year he got hurt. So that's the thing with Haener. Might have gone a lot higher in 2021, but instead he finishes 2022 season with 20 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He gets hurt. He misses most of the season or the rest of the season, but his completion percentage was 72%. I mean, we're talking about excellent numbers, getting better every year. Athletically, he still ranks about 7th among quarterbacks. It just doesn't exhibit it on the field. But I like Haener. There you go. Let's see if a 6-foot quarterback can make it in the Saints offense, huh? Tackle Warren McClendon. Yep. He's projected to be an above average backup, and I think that's exactly what James Hurst is. An above average backup. Can Warren McClendon start a few games for you? Maybe. He's got 34.5-inch arms. He's got 10-inch hands. He's 6'4", 306 pounds. He's a good size. I think he can make this roster. I think he can beat out Landon Young. Viliami Fehoko out of San Jose State. 6'4", 276 pounds. Perfect defensive end size for the Saints. Last year, he was the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year. He had been a first-team All-Mountain West player 3 times. But last year, he takes home the Defensive Player of the Year. 66 pressures. He had 69 tackles as a defensive lineman. 69 tackles. 19 tackles for losses. 9 sacks. 2 forced fumbles. I am a huge fan of this player. Let's talk about tight end Zach Kuntz. Kuntz? You say Kuntz? All right, I'll say Kuntz. Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion. 6'7", 255 pounds. He ran a 4.55 40. So 4.5 speed for a 6'7" dude. 40-inch vertical. Yeah. 10 foot 8 inch on the broad jump. 23 reps for a tight end. Pretty good. So this guy's got skill. He just needs a lot of time. Yeah. Feels like it's a basketball player trying to play tight end. Yeah. To me, Zach Kuntz is Jimmy Graham. So not a bad pick. We didn't have a great need at tight end, and now we got a toy to play with. Let's see if he can do something Adam Troutman can, huh? Running back, Zach Evans. My least favorite pick. I really wanted a running back. He may turn out to be something special. We'll have to see. 5'11", 202 pounds. He wasn't part of the Senior Bowl, but he did visit the Saints in one of the 40 visits. And he averaged 6.9 yards a carry. You know, he never really started. He was always a change of pace back, and he was tough enough to run in the middle, and he could make people miss on the edge. His issue is with injuries. He's been injured every year he's played, and he's had some fumbles. So Zach Evans is a work in progress, but I think the player, if he doesn't get injured and he doesn't fumble, he fits the Saints offense very well, especially as that change of pace behind, Jamal Williams. If Kamara isn't here anymore in a couple of years. Let's talk about wide receiver Jonathan Mingo. I really had my sights set on Xavier Hutchinson, and of course, A.T. Perry, praying for either him or Rashid Rice to fall. But I go ahead and pull the trigger on Jonathan Mingo out of Mississippi, and I'm not upset. At 6'2", 220 pounds. He's not 6'2", 200. He's 6'2", 220. He is thick. And he ran a 4.46. Okay, you got Jordan Addison at 5'10", running a 4.47. We got Mingo at 6'2", 220. Got 50 pounds on Addison, at least 40 pounds on Addison, and 4 inches. And he's running just as fast as Addison. What else I like about him? 39.5-inch vertical. How about a 10-foot, 9-inch broad jump? Okay, great. 22 bench reps for a wide receiver. Wide receivers are usually lucky if they can get 10. This guy is big, strong, fast, and he's a stellar ball hawk. He can track the ball in the air with the best of them in this draft. I like my chances of a guy who can take the top off if you're thinking he's going to out jump you and you're trying to play too close, and he can just get behind you. He runs crisp routes. Mingo is a guy I think that's going to translate to be a pretty good player in this league, and somebody with his size opposite Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed sounds like a winner to me. Guard Steve Avila. I traded up to grab him. Picking a guard like Steve Avila at 40 makes sense. But, you can get him if you just wait a few more picks and, pick up some extra picks along the way. Steve Avila, 6'3", 332 pounds. He can probably lose weight and still be as effective. 28 reps. Number 1 total combine score for guard. He was a combine freak. He's got 33-inch arms. I like it. He played 540 passing downs last year. He allowed 11 pressures on 540 plays. He only allowed 11 pressures, and he allowed 0 sacks. That's what you're wanting to see. This is the guy. He's the guy. You're not going to move up in the first round and get Torrance. Avila's the guy, and we got him. Edge rusher Lucas Van Ness. People love edge rushers. People want me to get Felix all the time. He's too small. People love Nolan Smith. I'm not. I lived through the Dome Patrol. I love linebackers who can blitz the quarterback, and that's what Nolan Smith seems like he is to me. Yeah, you might get a lot of sacks from him. I want an edge rusher off the defensive end spot. Okay, so I need my edge rusher to have size. Lucas Van Ness has size, 6 foot, 5 inches, 272 pounds. Perfect. Perfect for the Saints. This guy adds 15 more pounds, and he's the perfect defensive end. 10 more pounds. It just go eat at Cafe Du Monde a few times. Get some of that Cajun cooking in you at some of the great restaurants in New Orleans. We'll be there. Love Van Ness. They called him Hercules at Iowa because, he's Adonis here. Ran a 4.58 40, 34-inch arms, 11-inch hands, 9 foot, 10-inch broad jump. He's got all the athleticism. They called him Hercules. Well, we're going to see what Hercules can do with the black and gold because we got him in the first round. And then my favorite, of course, defensive tackle Kalijah Kancey. He's too short at 6'1". Everybody says he doesn't really look like Aaron Donald, even though he's got the measurements. He looks like Leroy Glover to me. And everybody says, oh, well, they're going to block him on running plays. Okay, put him out there in sub packages and passing downs. We've got big beef in the middle of the defensive line with Shepard. Now, and with the guy from Kansas City, and then we throw Kancey in there when it's a passing down. I'm okay with this. I don't expect Lucas Van Ness to be an every down defensive end at first. I expect him to come in sub packages and rush the passer, and Kalijah Kancey can do the same. Second down, third down, wants the same type of lead, put him out there, see what he can do. If he's gonna be a rotational player and Kancey's in there on running downs and they're blocking him up pretty good, hopefully the linebackers can flow and make something happen. But as far as third down and you got Kancey and Van Ness out there going after you, maybe sliding Peyton Turner on the inside on those passing downs. We can do that too. Carl Granderson's got some inside experience. Cam Jordan can rush from the inside if they want to. Kalijah Kancey had a next generation stat athletic score of 98. I think the 100's as good as you can get. So he played 2 years as a starter, ended up with 14 and a half sacks, 27 and a half tackles for losses, and, in 2 seasons. So if you're getting 7.5 sacks a season at defensive tackle and you're making tackles for losses in the double digits, yeah, that's a guy I want on my team. That is the draft I made, Mock Draft 2.0. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you agree with what I've done. I could show you a ton of 8-pick, 7-round simulations I've done, but this is the one that I decided to write down and present to you today, because in this one, I've done everything that I think we need to do. We need to move up at certain times. We need to move back and collect picks at certain times. We need to take advantage of extra picks so we can fill more of the needs. And even if some of these players don't make it, at least you tried. At least you tried. All right, I'm Joe. I'm going to be doing more Saints videos. Not sure if I'm going to have another one out before the draft, but we will be covering the draft here for sure. Subscribe to Rosenville 10 for more videos like this. Click on playlist, go to New Orleans Saints. You'll find what you're looking for with these. I'm Joe, and I will talk to you later, my Who Dat Nation. Who Dat?